It's effectively President Cyril Ramaphosa's fourth State of the Nation address, and one of those that desires not just decision-making, but action. The time for implementation is very key and very poignant, and I'll certainly be unpacking just in detail the promises that were given to South Africa just in last year's State of the Nation address after, of course, the general elections which were held in May. President Cyril Ramaphosa promising a lot, but seemingly not doing enough to abate and really just curb the fears, not just of investors, but even South Africans locally who believe that services need to be put together. So how much has this impacted the investment community globally and as well locally? Yamkela Makupula, the CEO of Diaz Rues Africa, is joining us here to unpack this just a little bit more. Yamkela, thank you so much for the time. It's a sentiment that I suppose is shared across many industries. Confidence in South Africa extremely low.
Yes, and thank you so much. I appreciate your time also. Well, it's low. I'm not going to lie, but then I think before we go to the reason why it's low, let's talk about the reason why we're still the biggest attraction when it comes to global investors in South Africa.
Sure.
Because they all see us as this huge gateway when it comes to getting into the rest of Africa.
So we're still seen as the gateway into Africa?
No, we are. And this is the best year because now we're also chairing the AU.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of attraction and excitement that is coming from the investors to say, working with South Africa to get into the AU, how do we do that? And I mean, that comes from a couple of things. You look at our mining sector, we still, big on chrome, we're still big on iron ore, we're still, of course, based on how we used to be, we're not there. But then if you compare us to some of these African countries, we're still very much doing well.
I mean, obviously we could contend with that one, considering very recently, just yesterday, the announcement of Anglo Gold Ashanti really leaving our shores. It doesn't necessarily bode the example very well with an industry that is the backbone, was the backbone, and was hopefully going to continue to be the backbone of South Africa's economy. Where are perhaps the little nuggets that investors are looking at to say, yes, we can and should still be investing in South Africa?
Well, it's going to come down to what the president is saying tonight. And, as South Africans, we tend to forget that the world is watching us.
Sure.
Those investors, I remember last year when after the president's speech, one of the first people to tweet was Donald Trump, the president of the US. And he was so impressed with that speech that people just started commenting on it. So the world is watching. But what the investors are looking for from the president tonight is, how are you dealing with corruption? Because the reason why we're sitting with an ESCOM today that can't sustain this whole country is because of corruption. The reason why we're sitting with an SAA that is on business rescue is because of corruption. The reason why we're sitting with a PIC that just keeps on failing our people and their investments is because of corruption. And we went about to go huge and say, we're going to the state capture, we're going to catch people, people will go to jail. People tonight are interested in finding out, especially investors, what are you doing? Is it realistic or is it just a conversation?
Do investors sort of look at President Cyril Ramaphosa and consider him one who has put in action in creating the South Africa he had promised when he first came into reign, or just as a decision maker who unfortunately hasn't been able to implement?
Well, one of the things that he has done well is bringing up those commissions. Do you get my point?
Yeah.
Because there was a time in South Africa that there was this perception that people can steal and get away with it.
Sure.
But now, what's going to help his credibility is what's going to come out of those commissions. Unfortunately, it's not just going to be about the talk. People want to see action. And that's what the investors are looking at.
How much leeway do we have then as a country, do you think?
A couple of months from now. And I would think let's give each other 6 months from now. Because whatever he promises today, I mean, we've been dealing with state capture up until February. We're supposed to have been making some decisions. So what's going to come out of that? ESCOM, he has to he can't talk about the dream of what we want him to do. I'm hoping that the teams at ESCOM have given him clear implementation plans that are very clearly saying by June, this is where we will be. So that, because then you bring back the confidence, because people are suffering. Businesses are saying, why should I put my business in South Africa with all the beautiful infrastructure and everything that we have, if I'm going to have blackouts literally every day? Why don't I
move the business then?
Why don't I go east? Why don't I go west? And the west is coming up. Ethiopia is coming up, and it's saying we're ready for investment. But then as South Africa, we're still in a good place. We can still fight this fight and win it. I am positive about that.
Yeah, look, you know, we've been a resilient country for quite some time. I think, I'd like to believe we're inherently positive as a nation as well. Unfortunately, all of that is waning and it's beginning to fade because we haven't done things that we were supposed to for the longest time. Are investors sort of looking at us now and saying, you pretty much are junk status, and now it's about actually putting things into action and making them work?
Actually, where you see it is that the investors come in and they say, we want to invest. But where most of these investments get stuck is on the due diligence stage, because they're saying, no, we've got the money, I want to bring the billion, but I'm going to do due diligence. And due diligence that used to take 6 months, unfortunately now it's taking us 2 years.
Why? Why is it taking that long?
Because in the middle of that, while you're starting to say, oh no, the company that you want to invest in, it's doing well, but then the state of the economy, well, you'll bring your money, but electricity will go out from time to time. Then there's a huge issue with our own state entities. And so now the investors are saying, no, because now due diligence is no longer about the specific company that they're wanting to buy. It's actually about the whole economy of South Africa. So we have been battling to take these conversations from due diligence to the actual money coming into the country. Is the interest there? Huge interest. I mean, the money is there, but then it's not becoming tangible.
I suppose that's what you get with fluid markets like South Africa, that you are able to still get a few more investors still wanting to be part of South Africa in that conversation. Thank you so much for the time, Yamkela. Really appreciate it. Really hope, though, that we can get a sense from President Cyril Ramaphosa this evening that indeed the investment community is important and that we will give them what is necessary to perhaps grow them a whole lot more. That was indeed Yamkela Makupula, the CEO of Diaz Rues Africa.